Hi, this is another edition of Treasure Valley NIA QuickTips. What these are about is I'm a franchise owner of Network in Action. They're out of Houston, Texas. We invest in a franchise and we run once a month professional referral groups. I have 3 groups, and through that I meet a lot of just high caliber local business professionals and owners here in the valley, and I bring them on to share their expertise. And today is a perfect example. Greg, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Greg Tripoli, partner with my wife with Sugar Fix Properties. We're a full service property management company. We specialize in helping clients achieve more out of the investments that they have. And we manage both long-term rentals, so your 12-month lease type situation, and short-term rentals. So Airbnb, VRBO, think of it that way.
Per- Perfect. We'll get into that or get deeper into that. And one thing I want to that we didn't talk about beforehand or anything, but where'd you get the name of your company is what?
Sugar Fix Properties. And you notice it doesn't
Wait,
say property management, right? So
yeah.
because we have plans for this company to do some things that are more unique in this space. There are a lot of property management companies here, but what we do is something a little bit different. But the name Sugar Fix actually comes from my wife's first name. Her name is Candi, and the business actually was originally named Sugar Fix Renovations. We thought we wanted to be a renovation company, and with Candi's expertise in self-taught design and just a passion for it, she has a very good eye for improving properties. And so we felt, and so we did one rehab for somebody and decided it wasn't something we wanted to do for others. It's something we want to do for ourselves. With a history of house flips ourselves, um, um, it just made sense for us to not do it for other people and just do it for us when it comes
Right.
time. But we felt that the name still held true, so we dropped the renovations and just added properties to it because we were already managing properties under a different name.
Cool. Well, then what? Yeah, then that gets right into it. So, what got you? So then, what got? What made you guys get into property management?
Yeah, it's not. I don't think somebody wakes up and says, "I want to be a property manager."
No.
It's, you just a lot of times you people just fall into what they do.
Yep.
Um, so just a little bit of history.
Okay.
I mean, I was in the high tech field for 3 decades as a technical salesperson, and during that time, we were flipping homes. And
Oh.
we, when we moved to Idaho in 2018, we wanted to learn the market. And well, we had rentals of our own too. We moved here from California in 2018, and we had our own rentals and managed our own rentals, sold them, started doing some house flips, moved here, wanted to learn the market. So we decided, let's get licensed. That's a great way to learn the market. So we thought, well, it is, but
Yeah.
we had no idea what we were getting into at the time because it was a side hustle, right? We still had our
Yeah.
main
Yeah.
jobs. But now real estate is everything. It's our livelihood now. But getting into real estate in 2019, we met a lot of investors. We helped, and I was educating myself on the market with what kind of cap rates and returns some of these home sales would do versus what the rents were bringing in. And so I learned the market pretty fast just by studying it every day without fail, and uh, got lined up with some investor clients and sold them some investment properties. And they were asking for referrals, so we referred them to a few different property management companies, and nobody would get back to them.
Oh.
So they finally came back to us and said, "Hey, can you just do this for us? We don't trust anybody else. We trust you guys." And said, "That's fine." I go, "We have some experience, but not any experience in Idaho managing properties. You understand that we're learning on your properties." And they're like,
Right.
"No problem, fine with us."
Wow.
So that's been a really good relationship with those clients, and we have learned. Fortunately, we're not growing this business super fast because we don't want to overextend, and that
Right.
was always been our goal is to grow at a comfortable pace where we can still perform for our client, which is our landlord or homeowner, and then our customer, which is our tenants and guests.
Yeah, see, I love that. And touch on that a little bit again, what you just said, because this goes on to my next question is kind of what makes you different. But what you just said was, what was the difference between you have somebody, somebody owns a rental, and then the person that's, the person that's renting it. So what do you call those two to make differentiate between them?
Yeah, the industry calls them landlord, right? A landlord is somebody that owns the property, and a
Right,
tenant is somebody that's renting it.
right,
We look at it a little bit differently. We call our landlords clients, and we call our tenants and guests. So a tenant would be somebody in a long-term stay, a guest would be
right,
someone in a short-term stay. We call them
right,
customers because with that, by looking at them from that perspective, it changes the attitude it changes our attitude, and we're
right.
trying to change the attitude of that relationship. Because a lot of times what happens is you get into this relationship between a landlord and a tenant, or a property manager and a tenant, and there's this industry feeling from the tenant's perspective that they're not worth anything,
Right.
right? And people are just out to get them, and you know the property manager or the landlord just wants to take their deposit, right? Well, we look at the tenants as customers, because if it weren't for them, I wouldn't have a job, I wouldn't have a
Exactly.
profession, I wouldn't have properties to manage, and the landlords wouldn't
Yeah.
be making any money.
Yeah.
So it's important to us that we clearly set that distinction and what that means to us, so that the customer knows, hey, we serve you, but you have to also understand we have a client that we're also serving, and the common interest is this property.
Right.
So,
See, I love that. Just that's all. I love that. For years and years and years, I've said companies, kind of a side thing, but important one is companies need to understand they have external customers and they have internal customers. Internal customers are called employees.
mhm. Yeah.
And they are gold. And if you have high turnover, it's terrible. Just like having a tenant, if you want to call them a tenant, treat them dirt like crap, you're gonna have high turnover or not a good relationship. So I love you guys' I just love that whole attitude. I just love that. So that gets right into my next question is, so, there's like property management companies everywhere. So what kind of sets you guys, you've mentioned a few things, but what set, like this one you just mentioned, but kind of what sets you guys different from other property management companies?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, any landlord that's looking to hire a property management company, they're going to want to make sure, and I'm going to answer your question, but I'm leading into that.
No,
They're
go
going to
ahead.
they're going to want to make sure that property management company, um, has the right tools. They can provide them with easy access to, income and expense reports. Um, in our minds, it's best to have a quick and easy way to send rent monies to our owners, and we do all that through electronic funds transfers.
Great.
Nothing's done by check, right? We want to be able to have a nice tracking of where this money flows
Yep.
and get it to our owners as quickly as possible. We have a portal that both our clients and customers can access to view maintenance history, trouble ticketing, things of that nature. But I think and any company should do that. Any property management company should offer those basic things. But we are constantly looking at the market to see, where are the rents for this particular property right now? Are we on par for this property in this neighborhood? Um, and we do that through a few different vehicles. We subscribe to a couple of different data houses that give us information on local rents for long term, and then what the short term market looks like. So we might go to a client and say, hey, we've been looking at the short-term market for this particular house. I know this client or this customer is about ready, their lease is about ready to expire. We may want to take a look at a short-term play here, or maybe a medium-term play. Let's say it's close to a hospital. It might make sense because right now the
Yep.
nurses into this area is picking back up again. So it might make sense to shift that property to a fully furnished property and help that help that client get more revenue out of it.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I have a friend that remodeled his house and does exactly that. It does traveling nurses, and he says they're the best tenants, and they're great tenants. And I mean, when you mentioned that, I went, wow, that's weird because I hadn't heard it before till my friend had mentioned that that's kind of who they were going after because they just were such great tenants. But again,
Yeah.
going back to what you said though is so that's one thing you guys do different is you're not as a landlord, you're not just like set it and forget it. It's like how can I maximize the most out of this investment you have, property, correct? So I mean, if it's or maybe it might flip and say it's been short term for a long time, but for whatever reason, the hospital over here in Nampa, one of the major hospitals that was real old, they took it down and put up a new hospital. So there's a good example where, if you were, you know, um, had a property near that place, it changed the type of tenant you'd have and it changed the type of situation. So that's one you guys really are looking at it for um the long term, and then you said short term, and then what's the medium term?
Medium term would be anything that's, you know, um, I'd say probably 2 months, 2 to 6
Okay.
months.
Okay. See,
Yeah.
I just not being in the industry, I didn't know, but I mean that's you have people like that just somebody that moves here, maybe I'm trying to think somebody that gets a job and looking for a house, and so they move here to go work for Micron, and they need a house for 2 months before to get. Is that kind of a
Mhm.
situation?
Yep, that's a situation. Maybe, they're here just temporarily to work, or maybe they're
Oh,
building a
yeah.
house. They're building a house, they need a place to live in while their house is being built.
Oh,
Um, we converted one of our short-term rentals that was very successful on Airbnb and just put two customers in there. They're traveling educators. So they basically took the place fully furnished for a full year. Excuse me.
wow.
But yeah,
Huh. That's
yeah.
awesome. So give me I always love to hear success stories. So give me a success story that you guys have done on one of your properties that like significantly, improve the value or the performance of it.
Sure. The first one that comes to mind, we helped a client buy a house in Boise about 2 years ago. And at the time, he asked us, he goes, "Hey, you want to manage this for me?" Because it was on Airbnb and VRBO for a few years prior to that. And that's this property has been that type of product um, for a number of years, even before my client bought it. And um, it wasn't performing very well, and he was very frustrated. He wasn't getting regular communication out of this management company, and um, we did some research to see, what's going on with this property. Why is it not performing? It should. It's unique. It has two dwellings on it, so it has a 3-bed, 1-bath, and basically what we call an accessory dwelling unit, pretty close to it.
Mm,
Almost looks like might have been a detached 2-car garage at one time, about that size, but it
mm,
wasn't. It was actually built purposely for an ADU, but it wasn't performing, and we figured out why. So we made the necessary changes, um, improved the marketing. When you list any kind of rental on the market, and this is for any landlord that's out there listening, or even property manager that's out there listening,
yeah,
you have to do your due diligence and get that property prepared for a number of reasons. There is a lot of competition out there, and you want
yeah,
to make your property shine more than anyone else's. So if we have a property on the market that's going to rent for $2,000 a month, and house rent next door is going to rent for $2,000 a month, and they're, fairly similar to each other, I want to make sure mine looks way better. Right? So we get somebody in that house that much quicker. So
yeah.
we it's preparation, it's marketing, professional photography. If video makes sense, we'll do video. But we prepare every rental as if we're preparing a house to sell, right? We want that house to sell to
Love it.
be the top of the market. Why not the rental? So you see, if you go to Zillow, you'll see a ton of pictures out there that are just taken with an iPhone. It doesn't do the property justice, and you're doing a
Right.
disservice to your property by doing that. So Anyway, so we get into this property, and within 3 months, it's already performing better in the first 3 months of us having it than he did the entire previous year on this property. So
That's
it's just,
awesome.
you just have to take time and
Yeah.
care and understand what's going on and why it's not performing and make those necessary changes and and be available. That's the other thing. You have to be
Yeah.
available for people when they have questions and want to book something. And
No,
this was actually was an Airbnb. Both of them were on Airbnb, and
right.
we just converted the ADU to a 12-month fully furnished, all utilities paid rental. And that one
Oh,
gets filled
cool.
up.
Hey, really quick for somebody that's listening doesn't know what ADU is. What's that?
It's a accessory dwelling unit. And so it's
Okay.
a second livable dwelling on
Okay.
the same property.
Yeah, they're really. I heard that, but then I bumped into somebody that did manufacture home or actually did ADUs down in California, and they produce
Hmm.
them here anyway. And then he kind of coached me on that. But some people listen to it. What is that? Basically, that what are they? The old granny houses out back,
Oh,
or
the mother-in-law quarters.
yeah, there you go. Yeah,
What they
it's
used to
kind of
call them.
that's another kind of a. I don't know if that's derogatory. I don't think it is, but I'm just saying that help people understand that you just have a property and there's another either you build one or there's another you put another unit on it to take advantage of invest and make money on it investment.
Hmm. Yeah. And if you do it right, they could be really, really nice properties. I'll call them mother-in-law quarters. I've seen mother-in-law quarters nicer than the home that's on the property, right? Might be a little smaller, but
Yeah,
those are people that really love their mother-in-law.
yeah, I
I
love
would do
that.
that for mine.
Yeah, me too. So hey, and then I got a question for you is going to the next one is so one thing I really like that you do is if somebody was to reach out to you and just say, I have a rental, I'm just either a property management company or not a property management, I don't care. Either or, right? And then they reach out to you because they see this podcast or they bump into you, bump into me, and they say, I'm just not happy. Right. What does it look like to work with you?
It's a good question. So we take pride in, well, first thing that we do is we won't ever tell somebody what they want to hear, right? We're
Right.
always telling people what they need to hear, even if the conversation won't be popular.
Yeah.
And and we do that for full transparency reasons, right? We want to make sure that, our clients understand what the situation is, whatever that situation is, positive or negative, right? Because they need to be able to make educated decisions, um, right, on that kind of stuff. We also do quarterly inspections, right? And so on each property, and it's not so much to see if the customer is doing damage, it's to see what's happening with this property, and are there things that need to be addressed so that they don't become bigger problems, right?
Right.
Because our goal to our client is we're going to provide a property back to you in better condition than when we received it. But the client has to be willing to play, right?
Right.
Because if they don't want to put the money into their property ever, then they're probably not a good fit for us in Sugar Fix
Right.
Properties, because our goal is to provide you back with something that you can either market to sell or um, increase your rents for, and you increase your rents on. Um, so a lot of communication, a lot of transparent communication, and level setting and goal setting with our clients, understanding what their goals and priorities are with that particular property and helping guide them in the right direction on how we should market it, short term, long term, medium, whatever.
Right. And then that's another thing you guys do is the analysis, right?
Mhm.
Like, because if I
Yep.
don't know, I mean, I have a long term, I'm not happy with it. I bring you in, your team, you and go, what's this short term, medium term? You guys do an analysis for if I had something like that, you do analysis for me.
We call it a rental revenue review. And
Okay.
what it does, it helps us identify the highest and best use for a given property. So I might come back and say, hey, leave it as a long-term rental. Here are the reasons why. But what I do is I do it over a Zoom call like this. I share my screen and I show them all of the data that I'm looking at to draw to the conclusion that I've come to. That conversation might also be not, it might be long term, or hey, it might be better as a short term rental. Here's why. Here's what you can expect it to perform. Um, but also, we look at what is its current value. Because if its current value allows them to take that equity and buy more property with it, that would double their monthly cash flow, then it's something we should talk about.
No, I love that. Rather, I mean, I love that because that way you're being more of a consultant on their investment, versus just a property management company that, fixes stuff. You're going to be there with them working on it because a lot of times people get busy. And I know over the years, meet people, um, you know, investment properties or something, and they just don't sound like it's their thing. You know, what I mean, it sounds like, oh yeah, we bought 2 years ago and bought another one just because we knew I mean, it's so kind of a, so that
Someone
being
told us we
said,
should invest in real estate.
yeah, no, really, that's what
It
I've heard lots
happens.
of people say over their ear. But then that's where it's a benefit of working with like you and your team is that you guys can, because you're in the industry. I mean, you're in the know and in the real estate and stuff. And I wouldn't know if I owned it myself because I don't have a clue. If I did have a rental property and for whatever reason it was close to the new Micron monstrosity that's going to be built or something, some reason it just went way up in price or something, and there's maybe I should sell it or something like that. I wouldn't know what to do, and that's why it's a benefit of bringing you in because you guys are constantly kind of looking at your properties, kind of seeing the best use of that property. Is that what you guys kind of do?
We do it on a quarterly basis.
Okay.
Yeah, so we look
That's
at it on a
that's
quarterly
great.
basis to see, where are the market rents? Where are we right now? What does a short term look like? But a lot of times, we might be in the middle of a lease when we're looking at that.
Right.
So
No,
sometimes
I love that though, because again, I just love
a lot
the
of
fact that you're being very, proactive on people's properties again, because they want to get the most out of them. So what about tenant screening? How do you guys do take care of that? Because I mean, that's one of those things I don't want to, have the tenant from heck. Yeah,
they
it just,
happen. Yeah,
yeah,
we try not to. I mean, part of that. Well, so the tenant screening, we look at financial background. So we're looking at credit score, W-2 information, right? We want to know, sometimes we look at bank account. It depends. Say it's a newer business owner, and they don't have the W-2s to show, or they can't show a pay stub or whatever, then
right.
we'll ask for um, um, you know, bank statements.
Yeah.
But we also do a criminal background check to see where they have been, from a criminal standpoint. But we
Right.
also want to know, we like to see 3 times the monthly rent in gross income per month. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
So if the rent is, $2,000 a month, I want to see that they're bringing in $6,000 a month, right? And then
As a
with
family, like as a couple or something.
yeah, or just the
Yeah.
household, right? It doesn't
Okay. Yeah.
matter if it's, 3 people living in there as roommates, it's
Right.
combined. I want to make sure the
Okay.
combined amount is 3 times, because
Okay.
what happens is we've gone down to 2.5, and sometimes we can do that. And that's negotiable. The other thing that we make negotiable is the credit score, because credit score only tells you so much. If
Yeah.
you get some history as to maybe they have bad credit, um, and maybe they went through a bankruptcy a few years ago, but their
Yeah.
cash flow is great, right? So we don't really look at credit score as, a major factor. Now it's something that we do look at. If we have two candidates side by side and they're identical and one has a better credit score than the other, we're probably going to go with that one. So it's a we have to make sure we're placing the right customer in the property,
Right. Right.
and then we do it on a first come first serve basis. So the first customer to come in to qualify for the property based on our criteria would get it, right? So we don't
I love that.
there's no favoritism, right,
Yeah.
going on.
No, I
Uh,
love that. You check it out, and that you're going to check their credit because if somebody's rented their whole life and been a terrible tenant, and all their the reason they have bad credit is because the landlords in the past have like reported them on the
Yeah.
credit, that's gonna be a problem versus like you said, a bankruptcy or something was a one-time thing, maybe it's not gonna be a thing going forward.
There are a couple other things that we look at too. So when that credit score comes back, we look to see because that credit report shows um, all their liabilities. So I can take a look at it and say, okay, well, I could see how much you make. I could see what your liabilities are, and this is what your rent's going to be. You're going to be really tight,
Yeah.
or right.
Yeah.
And we can look at those things and make those decisions. The other thing that we do is we call previous landlords to see how they were as tenants, and then employment verification if they are a W-2 employee.
No, that's great. You just gotta, I mean, you gotta be fair, but you gotta be fair. I mean, but at the same time, you gotta cover yourself. Again, you have, clients and the customers, the clients, you gotta make sure. And I like also the fact that if you're not doing them any favor. If you put them in and you look at everything and I mean, they're way over leverage on this property. Well, it's just going to make that thing flip most likely because they're not going to be
Mhm.
able to afford it, and then no one's going to win because they're going to have to move out, and everyone's yeah. So I love that. So when it comes to like if you can think of, is there anything else you can think of that I haven't asked you about what you do or anything like that?
Hmm. Um, a lot of people will look at our business name and they ask what we do, Sugar Fix Properties. Um, and they automatically say Sugar Fix Property Management. Well, there's no management in our name, and
Right.
for a reason. The reason is we have other services that we're in development on right now that are going to tailor toward actual homeowners, right? So people living in their homes. And we'll be launching this next quarter.
Okay.
And then also to landlords that they still want to self-manage, but they might need some help, right? And so it's called property valet. And it's going to be an offering under Sugar Fix Properties where we are providing services and property management services to people in the homes that they live in. So, for example, you own the house that you live in?
Yep.
Yeah. Let's say you just don't have the time or the interest in maintaining your property yourself, right? You could hire Sugar Fix Properties under property valet to care for your property like we do a rental property.
Oh,
And it'll be more on a subscription-based service. Um, and that would be property valet for homeowners. Property valet for landlords would be, listing services, maybe turning a property over and getting it ready for the next tenant, um, doing screening, maybe acting as a backup for them when they want to go on vacation. Because hey, if you're a property manager, you don't get vacation.
yeah, yeah,
Right? Unless you have somebody backing up for you that understands the
yeah.
business. So it's that kind of stuff that we're going to be offering to self-managing landlords.
I love that. And the valet we've talked about before, the way I kind of understand it is another thing too is, so for example, let's say, um, my wife and I are, you know, make a lot of money, and maybe we 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 just travel a lot, don't want to deal with the maintenance on our house and stuff like that. We could hire you to kind of basically be the property management company on our own house, right?
Mhm. Yep.
That's kind of what you're talking about. And then different levels, but or maybe I'm trying to think of another, or maybe this another one is that, or maybe we spend 3 months out of the year down somewhere else. So either you manage it when we're down in Florida, golfing or whatever we're doing, and or maybe we want to make some money on it when we're gone. Would you help them with that?
There you go. You're going right down that road. Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you're living in a place and you're bouncing out of here when it gets cold or
Right.
colder, or you're gonna do an extended vacation for a few months, um, we can help you turn that into a revenue opportunity for yourselves. In fact, we actually have that going on right now with one of our Airbnb properties.
That's
Um,
great.
yeah, the owner went on. Um, gosh, I can't
Sabbatical?
think. Well, yeah, we'll just call it sabbatical. I can't think of the
Okay.
name right
Okay.
now.
Okay.
She's in the military, but um, she was called out to basically go on tour, so to speak.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
so the discussion was, hey, let's rent it to a traveling nurse. Well, with a finite window, it would be very difficult to get a traveling nurse to fill that spot. It would be very hard. So we just turned it in and put it on Airbnb, and that little place is kicking butt. It's
See,
doing
that
great.
is awesome. That is a perfect. So, I mean, again, this is great because you can see all the different ways when they meet with you that it basically are just all the different ways you can take your real estate property and make money out of it. Short term, long term, medium term, and that's you guys just kind of. I mean, that's just great. Even on even on your own properties. See, that's one thing I really hadn't thought about is that, people can make additional money on their own properties. If
Yeah.
you if you're going to be leaving 3 months out of the year, why not do a Airbnb? Because we've talked about this before. The nice part about Airbnb is because they're short, you can get right back in there again and make sure everything's nice and tidy and make sure it's clean. Versus long-term rentals, because when I was a kid, my parents had them, my grandma had them, and long-term rentals, not always, but sometimes you don't get eyes on anything for a couple of years and you don't know you might get versus a short-term rental and I learned this from you that the benefit of it you're getting eyes on it every you know couple days every couple
Mhm.
weeks and that just helps
At
keep
least
their
weekly, right? I mean,
yeah
unless somebody's in there for a few weeks, but you're
yeah
you're in there at least seeing it a couple times a month, let's say,
yeah
right? Sometimes a few times a week, depending on how much turnover you have. But I would say on average, across all the short-term rentals that we manage, um, we're probably seeing each one about 3 times a month
that's awesome.
versus
I
once a
love it.
quarter, like we're doing now in a long-term rental
Yeah, love
with,
that.
occasional drive-bys we do, but actually
Yeah,
getting in and seeing it.
yeah, perfect. Well, this has been great, Greg. I'm going to have the contact information in the show notes, but if someone's going to reach out to you, what's the simplest way to get a hold of you?
Simplest way is probably just by phone,
Okay.
208-477-4565. Or you could
Okay.
fill out a form on our website, sugarfixproperties.com.
Okay. Perfect. Well, awesome. This has been great. Like I said, this is something that is interesting for anybody, either a new investor or someone who's thinking of investing. Because this is, I don't know, like I said, I love it because it's all the different avenues you have for having a rental that I just hadn't thought of before I met you.
Yeah, we love it. We really have fun doing this.
It's awesome. Well, appreciate it as well. This has
Thank
been
you.
another episode. Yep. Appreciate you being on here. Another episode of Treasure Valley NIA Quick Tips. Until next time, thanks everybody.